Ask yourself, what kind of county do you want to live in? One where the community grows sustainably, where prosperity goes hand in hand with protecting the environment, where society is built around well-serviced, well-connected towns, villages and communities. If that sounds like your kind of place, great. It sounds like ours too. Fingal. At Fingal County Council, our top priority is a better quality of life for all. That's why every 6 years, we make a new development plan. It's our way to take stock of how we're doing and set out a vision of how to progress, all based on what we learn from listening to you. Now it's time to write a new Fingal Development Plan for 2023 to 2029. We want to know what you would put in it. And to get the ball rolling, here are some key points for us all to discuss. People and place, climate action, connectivity and movement, economy, employment and Dublin Airport, cultural heritage, green infrastructure and natural heritage, infrastructure and utilities. Everything changes, and so do we. There are new realities, new people with new needs. Children, adults, single people, families, workers, retirees, those in need, others doing well. All kinds of everyone, all part of Fingal. It's important to make your voice heard. If you want a development plan that addresses your needs, tell us what they are. We're listening. And with your help, we can turn a good plan into a great plan. Let's talk Fingal and hear what you have to say. Go to fingal.ie/development plan, attend an online public consultation, or visit consult.fingal.ie to make a submission.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Jerry McDermott. I'm the Media and Communications Manager here at Fingal County Council. This is our third webinar as part of the consultation process that is playing and is going to play an important part in the creation of the Fingal Development Plan for 2023 to 2029. Last week we discussed people and place and also heritage and green infrastructure. Tonight we'll be looking at employment and economy, while on Thursday in our final webinar we will be examining connectivity and climate action. Last month, the development plan process began with the publication of a strategic issues paper. The purpose of this document is to stimulate debate and generate feedback from the public and stakeholders on what they think we should be doing to make Fingal a great place to live, work, visit and do business in. It marked the start of a 2-year process that will end in March 2023 with the adoption of the 6-year development plan by the elected members of Fingal County Council. Along the way, there will be 3 opportunities for the public and stakeholders to participate in the development plan process. And we are in the first of those consultation periods at the moment and are taking submissions on the strategic issues paper. The deadline for receipt of submissions is May 12th, and submissions can be uploaded onto the Fingal County Council consultation portal, which can be found at www.consult.fingal.ie. If you are making a submission, please remember 2 things. It should be strategic in nature and it should not be a zoning request, as zoning requests will not be considered at this time. Further information on the development plan process is also available on our website, which is fingal.ie/development plan. The strategic issues paper contains 7 key themes, ranging from people and place through to infrastructure and utilities. The purpose of these webinars is to give you some background into the issues and an opportunity to pose questions about them. Tonight, as I've said already, we are discussing employment and economy. We will have 2 presentations followed by a question and answer session. If you want to ask a question or make a comment, please use the Q&A facility, which you should find in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Before we commence our presentations, allow me to give you a few facts and figures about employment and economy in Fingal. Fingal has major economic assets such as Dublin Airport, proximity to Dublin City and the Dublin Port Tunnel, as well as direct access to the national and regional road and rail transport networks in Ireland and excellent links to Europe by air and sea. Fingal has one of the youngest, highly educated and most diverse populations in the state. Employment in the county increased by 15% between 2011 and 2016. There are 4,574 hectares of land zoned for employment, industry and enterprise uses throughout the county, and the labour force participation rate in Fingal highest in the region at 66.9%, compared to the state average of 61.4%. Indeed, in 2016, 89.7%, or 133,971 people from the labour force resident in Fingal were employed. Business demography in Fingal is characterised by a small number of very large employers and a high volume of SMEs. The top 25 employers in the county only represent 0.3% of all businesses in Fingal, but represent 17.9% of all employees. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, and Indigenous industry play important roles in the county's economy. And Fingal has a number of significant clusters within the county and is home to some of the leading names in the technology, life sciences and pharmaceutical sectors. There were a total of 8,311 businesses registered in Fingal in 2018, and this was an increase of 29% since 2011. Fingal also has a very strong Indigenous agri-food sector. These include enterprises such as Keelings, Country Crest, Sam Denigan, Kyo's and Donnelly's. So it's going to be an interesting subject tonight for us to talk to listen to, and we've two very good presentations for you as well. Our guests tonight are Matthew McAleese, who is the Director of Planning and Strategic Development and is overseeing the development plan process. Emer O'Gorman is Director of Economic Enterprise, Tourism and Cultural Development here at Fingal County Council, and Aoife Sheridan is a Senior Executive Officer in the same department. Questions to Matthew, Emer and Aoife can be typed into the Q&A box, and as many as possible will be facilitated. Those that are not answered will still be considered in the consultation process. Finally, if we do have any technical issues, please bear with us and we will endeavour to resolve them as they arise. So before we go into tonight's presentations, I'd like to invite our Director of Planning and Strategic Infrastructure, Matthew McAleese, to formally welcome you to tonight's event. Matthew.
Many thanks. Our third of 4 development plan webinars, and I'd just like to thank you all for joining us this evening. Development plan is a shared vision of a better future and how we all want the county to look together with the objectives that will be required to implement and ultimately achieve that vision. The importance of your participation in this process cannot be overemphasized, as the next development plan to respond to your aspirations for the city, while also addressing any concerns due to time constraints. I can assure you that they will all be considered in the drafting and preparation of the development plan. The topic for this evening's webinar is the economy and employment. The preparation of the next development plan takes place within a unique period of significant economic uncertainty. For the Irish economy, and unemployment has risen. However, despite the lockdown in the first half of 2021, a significant recovery and domestic. In this context, economic planning for Fingal must balance the unprecedented events and economic shock of the past year with an expectation that the economy will recover to some extent and with some type of normality in the long term. The plan faces the challenge of responding proactively to circumstances while also providing for the built-in resilience and sustainability. Development plans incorporate economic policy in order to facilitate investment, development, and jobs growth, and where possible, stimulate activity within the administrative area. We in Fingal County Council face the challenge of aligning spatial planning objectives with economic trends so as to position the county to essentially capture opportunities that support and sustain investment and employment. Continue to support investment, both FD and Indigenous, and work with agencies such as the IDA, Enterprise Ireland, and our own local office to ensure the provision of high quality jobs at the right. Rural economy and Dublin Belfast economic corridor will continue to be supported by the objectives and policies within the development plan. Dublin Airport's connectivity will continue to be crucial to the economic development of Ireland, including trade, tourism, FDI and business location decisions. and Fingal County Council will continue to support economic development at this strategic location. The Fingal Development Plan 2023-2029 must respond to the new policy hierarchy set out in the National Plan, taking account of the current economic shocks to the system arising from Brexit, COVID-19 and the associated economic lockdowns. The trends affecting employment lands over the life of the current plan need a resilient economic strategy to plan for the unexpected, and we are seeking to achieve growth that is sustainable, competitive, inclusive and resilient. So at this point, I would again like to thank you very much for your participation here this evening, and I'll hand back to Jerry. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. So let's go to our first presentation this evening, and it's from Emer O'Gorman. And she's going to give you an overview of economic development in Fingal, and will also give an indication of where we are going in the future. Emer.
Good evening. My name is Emer O'Gorman and I am the Director of Economic Enterprise and Tourism Development here at Fingal County Council. This evening, myself and my colleague Aoife Sheridan are going to bring you through Theme 4, Employment, Economy and Dublin Airport as part of the development plan process. So the key question that I ask, and I am constantly asked by business, is why invest in Fingal? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is our really strong infrastructure. We are very lucky to have Dublin Airport within the county. We have Dublin Port Tunnel. We have a string of motorway networks, including the M1, the M50, M3 and M2. We have really good regional rail transport links linking into the national rail network. And obviously the delivery of Metrolink during the lifetime of this development plan will be a key driver for development in Fingo. We also have the youngest, most highly educated and diverse population, which Aoife will reference later through the skills work and the Arboretum project. Employment in the county grew by 15% between 2011 and 2016. We have over 4,574 hectares of land zoned for employment, industry and enterprise uses. Quality of life is a key decision-making factor in investment decisions, and this can be attributed to the provision of such things as our schools, our outstanding natural, cultural and sporting amenities, the wide range of leisure and shopping opportunities, 90 kilometres of scenic coastline, our seaside towns and villages, and a rural hinterland that make Fingal unique when it comes to being an attractive place to visit, live, work and do business in. There aren't many counties in the country where you can be in a city centre location 20 minutes one way by rail and another 20 minutes be at the coast in the midst of mountains and beautiful scenery. To speak specifically about the Dublin Enterprise Zone, it's a really good example of economic development in action. It contributes 14.4 billion to the national economic output. It supports over 34,600 jobs, and there has been significant public and private investment over the last 20 years. Foreign direct investment and Indigenous industry play an important role in the county's economy, working in tandem. The area currently contains 20 business parks with approximately 1,100 business premises. Over 19,500 jobs are supported in a mix of FDI and Indigenous companies. We have a number of significant clusters operating within Fingal, and we are home to some of the leading names in technology, life sciences and the pharmaceutical sector. There was a total of 8,311 businesses registered in Fingal in 2018. This was an increase of over 29% since 2011. The aviation sector continues to be a major employer in Fingal and will continue to do so post-COVID. This includes international players such as Aer Lingus, the Dublin Airport Authority, CityJet, Serviceair and Ryanair, to name but a few. When we speak about Indigenous industry and Fingal, the first thing that comes to mind is our agri-food sector. It's a really, really important sector within the county. We have key players, national players and international players such as Keelings, Country Crest, Sam Denigan, Keogh's, Taylor's and Donnelly's. I challenge you not to find one of their products the next time you go to visit your supermarket. Fingo performs really strongly in the ICT sector, with leading companies such as IBM, PayPal and Symantec represented in the Blanchetown area. As I mentioned before, pharmaceutical and healthcare sector is well established in Fingo, with companies such as Bristol Myers Squibb, Mallinckrodt, Island and MSD. Just want to focus on MSD for a moment. MSD are a great example of a large multinational company who have worked in partnership with the local authority and the IDA in developing out their campus and engaging with the local community. This is a key part of doing business in Fingal. It's the business needs and the community needs, and our role in economic development is to bridge that gap and to provide advice where we can. The retail sector also plays a significant role in the economy of Fingal as a source of direct employment, with regionally significant shopping centres in Blanchetown and Swords. Retail warehousing and retailers with national draws such as IKEA and Decathlon all chose to locate in Fingal. Tourism is a very important Indigenous sector. It generates revenue and employment. Visitors to Fingal would normally generate a 500 million spend annually. Obviously this year is slightly different with COVID, and this sustains a total of 20,000 jobs, which is 1 in 4 jobs in Fingal. And that's in direct tourism work and in service industries that support tourism, such as transport, retail and entertainment. We are very lucky in Fingal to have a rich portfolio of natural and cultural assets, and we work hard to capitalise on our edge of city location, leveraging our proximity to the city centre and the export transport links, and in particular Dublin Airport. We are also very lucky to boast a suite of heritage properties within our portfolio here in Fingal, from Malahide Castle and Gardens, the Casino Fry Model Railway Museum, Newbridge House, Ardgillan Castle, Skerries Mills, to name but a few. These have their own particular draw to both the staycationer and the day tripper alike. We're also very open to the culturally curious and foodie tourism. There's strong segments within our tourism market which leverage off the success of our agri-food sector. We also provide a broad programme of support for community and commercial events in the county which drive tourism, such as Flavours of Fingal, the various summer fests and festivals, and Malahide concerts, for example. The development of the Fingal Coastal Way and active travel routes will make Fingal a destination for day trippers and staycationers alike. When we talk about business support here in economic development, there's a number of strands to that. First and foremost being that of the local enterprise office. The local enterprise office is charged with dealing with small and micro enterprises. And in 2020, they completely pivoted their operation to an online environment, providing numerous trading online vouchers at a volume that was not surpassed anywhere in the country. These vouchers enabled businesses to transition to the digital marketplace. The Leo office also delivered Brexit ready supports, which was kind of lost in the noise of COVID, but vitally important support to business. The Leo office also provides mentoring and support services. On the Restart grant, over 31 million was paid out through the first iteration of the Restart grant and the Restart grant plus to Fingal businesses in 2020. The rates waiver scheme continues to be a vital support to businesses. We also have a suite of softer supports that we have developed and promoted through our economic stimulus measures throughout 2020, and we move forward into 2021 and 2022, namely being the Fingal Living Together Charter, which was about businesses helping each other and supporting each other through this very, very trying time. That was done through a number of ways, namely through our shoplocal.irish partner not-for-profit online platform, Partlet Partner Scheme, which provided much needed outdoor dining space. That now has been enhanced with the addition of the Fall to Ireland Outdoor Dining Scheme. We have our own in-house shopfront paint and design schemes, and tourism-specific advertising campaigns, which we ran in 2020 and will run again in 2021. When we look at the future development of Fingo, there are a number of key items on our agenda. First and foremost would be the Dublin-Belfast Economic Corridor. Fingo is the lead agency in this network of 8 local authorities and 2 universities. It's a key element in the delivery of the regional, spatial and economic strategy, and this corridor provides opportunities for further foreign direct investment, and by increasing its critical mass and population, jobs growth will take place in a sustainable growth pattern focused on clusters and smart specialisation. Planning for Metrolink is ongoing between Fingal County Council and TII and is set to commence passenger services in 2027, which will carry up to 50 million passengers per annum and run between Swords and Charlemont, connecting key destinations including Dublin Airport and the city centre. The delivery of Swords Cultural Quarter during the lifetime of the development plan will bring significant investment to the town of Swords. As I mentioned earlier, the ongoing development of the Fingal Coastal Way is a key piece of infrastructure that will unlock the coastal towns and villages, improving quality of life and the tourism experience up and down the coast. Development post-COVID of co-working and remote working spaces is a key deliverable for us in Fingo. We've moved into a new space where the digital workplace is ever more important, and Aoife will speak to that a bit more in her presentation. We also work hard at supporting rural economic development through leader and town and village funding and having a town centre first approach to everything that we do. I'd like to thank you for your time this evening, and I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Aoife, who will take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be with Aoife now in a second, but thank you, Emer. Just before we go to Aoife's presentation, if you have a question for Emer, would you please type it into the Q&A box and send it to us. We plan to spend around 30 minutes answering your questions, and as I said before, if your question doesn't feature, don't worry, it will be passed on to the development plan team for consideration in the preparation of the draft development plan. Now, let's go to our second presentation. It's from Aoife Sheridan, who is a Senior Executive Officer in Emer's department, which is the Economic Enterprise, Tourism and Cultural Development Department. And Aoife is going to talk about placemaking, and she's also going to look at policies such as the skills survey and sustainable Fingal and remote working. Here's Aoife.
Hi, my name is Aoife Sheridan. I'm Senior Executive Officer in the Economic Enterprise, Tourism and Cultural Development Department of Fingal County Council. This is theme 4, Employment, Economy and Dublin Airport. I'm going to talk to you now about what the Council is currently focusing on and where we hope to go in the future. Firstly, I'm going to talk to you about placemaking. Fingal County Council wants to make Fingal a place to live, work and do business in. So what are we doing to attract foreign direct investment and Indigenous industry to locate their businesses in Fingal? Next, I'm going to talk to you about the key areas of policy that Fingal County Council is currently working on, which is economic recovery, skills, sustainability, digital and remote working, and rural development. The Council's work in Balbriggan is a prime example of a placemaking approach. Here, the Council is taking a holistic view of the town and how it will develop into the future in a sustainable way. Balbriggan is a town where the population has grown by 94% over the last 25 years. So the Council wants to focus on consolidation of the town, improving services in the town, and supporting the livability and sustainability of Balbriggan town. Fingal County Council was recently successful in securing URDF funding of 25.4 million for the Regeneration Rejuvenation of our Balbriggan. This URDF funding acts as a catalyst for the transformational change in the town. The Our Balbriggan Rejuvenation Plan is the result of strong community engagement over the last number of years. It has 4 pillars which have now expanded to 5, which focus on the public realm, the local economy, community affairs and integration, education, training and skills, and community safety. This is an ambitious plan for the future development of the town, setting out more than 93 objectives. Balbriggan is strategically located along the Dublin-Belfast economic corridor, which is a prime location for Fingal for future economic growth and development. It has great potential for tourism with its coastal location. And with the launch of Smart Balbriggan in 2020, is set to become a prime location for digital innovation. Key policy areas for Fingal County Council at the moment is obviously economic recovery. Fingal County Council wants to support businesses as they get back down to business. We want to support them in driving footfall and attracting investment and customers back to their businesses. We have a number of economic stimulus measures that we've rolled out over the last number of months. The first of those is Fingal In It Together, which was launched during COVID to support businesses as they were pivoting to an online environment. This measure has helped those businesses in terms of online marketing and keeping their business going during the lockdown periods. It's been very successful with over 240 members currently registered with the Charter. Parklet Partners was piloted by the Council in 2020 and involved the conversion of parking spaces into public open space to create vibrant streets and support local businesses and provide space for people to dine and relax. We also have the Outdoor Dining Scheme, which was recently launched, funding from Fáilte Ireland. This initiative aims to support hospitality, upgrading and enhancing streets and public spaces to facilitate year-round outdoor dining. We also had in 2020 a shopfront improvement scheme, which was very successful last year, and we are relaunching that now in 2021 to support businesses as they reopen post-COVID. The Fingal Skills Strategy was the first of its kind in the country. This strategy identifies gaps between the skills of Fingal's workforce and the skills that employers will need and want into the future. It sets out a number of recommendations, such as new training courses, increased course provision, and building relationships with employers and stakeholders. It focuses on a sectoral analysis of what skill gaps are across various sectors, including commerce and trade, professional services, transport and logistics, manufacturing and biopharma, agri-food and construction, all key sectors for Fingal. The Fingal Skills Strategy is now moving into the implementation phase, and the focus is very much going to be the creation of sustainable jobs and bringing together educational providers, policymakers and employers to ensure the future growth and development of the county. One strand of this that's already in play is the Our Balbriggan Loves Learning online festival, which is running from the 19th to the 30th of April. This is being driven by DDLETB, Empower, DSP, and the Dublin Regional Skills Forum in collaboration with Fingal County Council, with live events running over that period of time, focusing on learning for employment, learning for business, learning in the community, and digital learning. In 2021, Fingal County Council launched Sustainable Fingal. Sustainable Fingal was born from Fingal County Council's Climate Change Action Plan. And this initiative aims to encourage SMEs to embrace sustainable measures in their day-to-day operations. To this end, the Council has launched a website and a digital brochure with ideas to inspire businesses about how they can incorporate some of these sustainable measures into their day-to-day operations, looking at things such as energy, water and waste. The Council very much wants to drive this forward into the future and take a circular economy approach. Fingal's digital strategy was launched in 2020. This strategy sets out 48 actions which aim to encourage and support citizens and businesses to reap the rewards of a digitally enabled society. The strategy looks to support economic development, enhance remote working, and enhance access to digital education and learning. Part of the strategy has already seen the delivery of free public Wi-Fi in Balbriggan, and more recently in Skerries, Rush and Lusk. The strategy is also progressing the rollout of broadband, and one of the key features of the strategy was the launch of Smart Balbriggan in June 2020. Smart Balbriggan now comes under the umbrella of Smart Dublin and has a public Trello board with links to all the projects that are being driven by this digital innovation project. Another key feature of the strategy is remote working, and the Council is currently reviewing demand for remote working in the current environment and the future provision of remote working facilities. In respect of rural development, the recent publication of Our Rural Future sets out a 5-year strategy with a number of commitments to transforming the rural environment in Ireland. A key focus of this is again remote working, alongside the revitalisation of town centres and the green economy. The Council is also actively involved in the Rural Leader Programme, which is an EU-funded programme supporting community-led local development and social inclusion in rural Dublin. The Leader Programme has so far committed 6.4 million in funding to projects across rural Dublin up to 2022. The Town and Village Scheme aims to rejuvenate rural towns and villages throughout the country. And since 2016, the government has committed 68 million in funding nationally, over 830 projects. In 2020, the focus of the Town and Village Renewal Scheme aimed to support the economic and social recovery of towns and villages in rural Ireland, focusing on the COVID-19 challenges that these locations were facing. This is a brief overview of the key policy areas that Fingal is currently focusing on and will focus on into the future over the next development plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Aoife. And if you have any questions for Aoife or any of our panelists, please type them into the Q&A box and we'll try to get through as many of them as we can between now and 8 o'clock. So let's move to the question and answer session. Let's switch on the microphones of all our panelists and go for the first question of the evening. And I'm going to pose the first question to Emer O'Gorman. Emer, you mentioned in your presentation the Dublin-Belfast Economic Corridor, and we have a question in from one of our viewers wondering what steps will be taken to develop the Economic Corridor as part of the next Fingal Development Plan.
It's a really good question, Jerry. Yeah, as you know, we launched the Dublin-Belfast Economic Corridor on the 24th of March. So our 8 partner local authorities and the 2 universities. So it links from Dublin City Council all the way up to Belfast City Council. The next steps of the working group are to develop an engagement plan for a broader outreach to the business community, the community sector in general, different elements that might have a say in what's going to happen next with the corridor. Obviously, there's 8 different counties at play here. So in speaking then about Fingal specifically, the clustering and the delivery of, I suppose, key FDI investment and other businesses along that corridor for our stretch of the corridor would be really important to us. And I suppose to name a very obvious space in that would be the Stephenstown industrial lands, some of which are under the control of Fingal County Council and others are in private ownership. Those locations along the M1 are hugely important from an economic development point of view. I think as we move through this next phase of the development plan, we will see that strategic link between Fingal, Louth, Meath and north of the border being more and more important, particularly in a post-Brexit environment. We are receiving an awful lot of inquiries about businesses that want to locate in Fingal, want to have a base within the EU, English-speaking country. There's an awful lot going for us. And I think just our proactive approach to securing investment along the corridor and promoting it has put us in good stead for the future. So I see it as a rapidly growing area of development for us in Fingal.
Thank you, Emer, and certainly it is an exciting project. Aoife, I have a question here for you. How can the development plan support the regeneration of our towns and villages?
Thanks, Jerry. The development plan can do an awful lot to help the towns and villages in terms of their regeneration and development into the future. The development plan offers an opportunity for people in these towns and villages to set the future vision for that town or village and pick the direction that they want to go in. So it's very much about picking out what the strengths are and building on them and consolidating on them and finding the opportunities that exist in what is already there and present in those towns and villages. And also as well identifying what weaknesses are there in terms of infrastructure or anything else so that we can set a plan to address them over the course of the next development plan, whether that be a need for a playground, whether it's a need for a school, more housing. All of these things can be addressed through the development plan and set a direction for that town and village to develop over the next development plan and the next 5 to 6 years. So it's very much about supporting and sustaining these towns and villages. So it's very important for people to put in their comments and observations on what direction that they think Fingal County Council needs to develop these towns and villages so that they can have their say about what way that those towns and villages do develop and that we can concentrate on what's important to the people in that development. And I might just ask Emer to come in on the town centre first policy that's recently come in. Emer?
Yep, thanks, Aoife. Yes, as you may be aware, I suppose a recent government policy on town centre first, which is focusing on the regeneration of our towns and villages. I think COVID has really brought home to people the importance of the hometown. We've seen a large scale movement of people from city centre locations back into our towns and villages, and you know that's true of the towns and villages in Fingal as well as everywhere else. And that's a great opportunity for us. It's a great opportunity, and the timing wise, it's really good in terms of the development plan. So as Aoife said, for people to have their say about what's important in their reimagined town and village. If you're working from home, if you're working remotely, what facilities do you need? Is it broadband connection points? Is it a remote working hub that you can go to for an hour, you know, rather than working in your own home? Is it high quality retail restaurant experiences in your town and village? So the town centre first is really focusing on that, and a key element of that is very much going to be community-led, listening to what the people that reside or would like to reside in the town have to say. And I think Balbriggan is probably a little bit ahead of the curve in that we've already kind of done that with the Balbriggan Rejuvenation Plan. The town centre first will mirror an awful lot of that type of engagement that's there. And as I said, the timing of it, I know it's been born out of probably COVID, but it's very timely in terms of the development plan process and just helping us to form our views on where we go next with the regeneration of our towns and villages.
Okay, thank you, Emer. Thank you, Aoife, as well. Don't forget, if you've got questions for any of our panelists, use the Q&A box up in the top right-hand corner of your screen and send them in to us, and we'll try and get through as many as we can between now and 8 o'clock. There were in the presentations a lot of mentions about tourism and you know the impact that tourism has on the Fingal economy, and there's a question that has come in on that point, and I suppose Emer and Matthew, it's probably for you, and maybe Matt, you might come in first on it. How can the development plan optimise the potential of the tourism sector in Fingal?
Thanks, Jerry, and I suppose tourism is recognised as being one of the most important economic sectors in Fingal, and one of the key objectives from a development plan is making sure that we develop the necessary tourism infrastructure and visitor attractions and the supporting facilities that are needed to attract tourism into Fingal. I think both Aoife and Emer in their presentations referenced the Fingal Coastal Way. This is a new high quality and attractive urban and rural greenway that will link Donabate in the south to Rush, Lough Shinny, Skerries and Balbriggan, and obviously along the route then there's huge opportunities to link in to some of our major visitor attractors such as Newbridge House and Donabate, Scary's Mills, Ardgillen House, and up to Braemore Castle. So those are exactly the types of projects that we are heavily promoting and investing in trying to raise both awareness for the huge tourism potential that Fingal has, and then trying to increase our tourist numbers into the county.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Just to come in on that as well, I suppose, I mean, the Coastal Way, the full development of that will be transformational for what I already see as a string of pearls along the coast. I mean, we really have a fabulous proposition there, beautiful towns and villages. And I mean, we've all seen it recently. They've never been busier because they offer so much to residents of the areas and the broader picture. But I think we have this unique opportunity. We are on Dublin's doorstep, but we have wide open spaces, and it's getting that message across through our various advertising campaigns and what have you. But the development plan, where we can leverage those opportunities for investment, the delivery of the Coastal Way, the delivery of the infrastructure, be it cycleways, public conveniences, opportunities for businesses to have pop-up coffee shops, the development of cultural and event spaces along our coast and in our other towns and villages as well to support that tourism industry. I can't emphasize enough how important an industry it is to Fingo. It does bring challenges, sustainable tourism and ensuring that the impact of tourism on the environment is reduced insofar as possible. And we would work very closely with the various tourism groups, tourism development groups around the county through our tourism office, linked in obviously with Fáilte Ireland as well. So, there's an awful lot going for us. There's a lot of work to be done. It's an ongoing conversation. And again, it's through the development plan process, we can really start to visualize what that might look like for the future for Fingo.
Okay, thank you, Emer. Keep those questions coming in. Use that Q&A button up in the top right-hand corner. We have a steady stream of questions coming in. There's one here, and I think, Aoife, I'll go to you in relation to this. It was just in relation to what you're talking about in relation to the Rejuvenation Plan for Balbriggan, and this particular viewer wants to know some of the projects that the Council will be progressing as part of that Rejuvenation Plan.
Thanks, Jerry. I'll run through the projects very quickly because if you let me away, I'll be talking for hours on this and you won't shut me up. So the team has been working very hard. Obviously, there was an awful lot of consultation in the early days about what projects ought to go into our Balbriggan Rejuvenation Plan. So the community reflected very strongly back to the council where we should be focusing our efforts, and we've really taken that on board in terms of what projects we're focusing on. So the Balbriggan team at the moment is very much looking down around Quay Street and the harbour, and what we're doing is we're preparing those projects to go into a design phase. So we're procuring integrated design teams to come up with real plans for the planning process, which we will then go and consult the community about, and the public will have their opportunity to say what they think of those plans and what needs to be adjusted, etc., before we go into the planning process. So very shortly now, there's going to be some consultation on Quay Street in particular, and especially down once COVID restrictions lift, down near the boathouse, which is between Quay Street and the harbour. We're almost ready to go into construction there once the restrictions ease. So you'll start seeing that area redeveloped, and obviously, as Emer has referenced, the Fingal Coastal Way may very well be coming down through that route. So it's going to be a prime location, hopefully, to kind of activate the space and bring a bit of vitality to that area. And again, down around the harbour, anyone in Balbriggan will know that the council has purchased that building down there to the harbour. So we have great plans to redevelop that area, and what we're looking to do there is very much give back the public realm to the people so that they can use it to the fullest extent possible and get a great lot of amenity out of that area. And again, with the Coastal Way coming down that route potentially, there's an awful lot of value add to be there in terms of amenity and tourism, etc. And all of that will, of course, bring in and attract private investment, as well as this public investment that we're making ourselves. So it's very much about driving that tourism and, you know, really strengthening the local economy there in those areas. So those are two of the projects that people in Balbriggan are going to see coming out of the traps reasonably soon in the next couple of months. There'll be a lot of consultation on them. And not forgetting, of course, that we have other projects in terms of down in Dublin Street and again on Bridge Street, where we've also purchased a building which we're going to turn around and hopefully renovate shortly. And other projects that we have on the go will be Millpond Park and really strengthening the green corridor along the Bracken River and down into Millpond Park and connecting up with the main street. And also Railway Street and Plaza, that's something else that we will be developing. It's not going to be this year, but it's in the mix for one of those projects to be delivered over the lifetime of the plan. And of course, we have coastal improvements on the Promenade, which will be very much tied into the consultation on the Fingal Coastal Way. And the last part of that is kind of the Balbriggan to Skerries route of that Fingal Coastal Way, which there's public consultation on at the moment. So that'll be a very important piece of consultation for us to bring through. And once we have feedback from that, we'll be able to progress that project and get that delivered as well. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, now we've mentioned it in the presentations, COVID-19. We all know the effect that COVID-19 has had on businesses in Fingal over the past 12 months. So I'll put this out to everybody, and maybe Matthew, you might come in first on it, and then maybe Emer, you might give us what your thoughts are on it. But really what we have here is a question wondering what measures and policies are in place to support economic recovery from COVID-19.
Thanks, Jerry. Well, I suppose at the backbone of every development plan, we have to make sure that we have sufficient zone lands to facilitate business growth in the county. You know, that's one of the primary objectives of any development plan. And you know, we've been closely watching the market, you know, around Brexit and the demand for logistics and an increasing demand for data centres in Dublin 15. We need to make sure that we provide high quality office space, and then just the whole area around remote working and making sure that we facilitate people that no longer have to commute, take on board long commutes. So are there facilities that we can provide in our local towns and villages? So those are some of the areas that we're currently concentrating on. We need to make sure that that we have that pipeline of serviced either high technology or general employment zone land, and then we also have the metro economic zone land along the proposed route of Metrolink that will run out of the city centre through the airport and then north into Swords. So again, it's making sure that there's that land is there, it's serviced and available, and then obviously then Emer and Aoife then have a role in promoting that land, and making sure that the new businesses, whether that be industrial or office based, is aware of those lands, and economic development have a role in that, and perhaps Emer might just have something to add to that.
Thanks, Matt. I mean, the whole promotion of our zoned lands is really important to us, and whether they are as our own in the Fingal's ownership or in just general ownership and just zoned for high tech or industrial use. We're members of a number of networks. Obviously the Dublin Belfast Economic Corridor is one. We're members of the Ireland as a Gateway to Europe as another, which is a key, I suppose, agency where we are promoting Fingal on an international stage, working then with the IDA constantly. We work hand in glove with them to try and attract investment into the county. And then I suppose part of that brief is that ongoing conversation with businesses that have located in the county, and to help them navigate the myriad of different issues they may be having, be it through trying to facilitate development meetings in advance of planning, or when they are actually in construction and they're having issues with, I suppose, community or residents in the area, and just kind of bridging those gaps. So that's really important messaging that we would always try and push from our side, from economic development. Again, in this post-COVID world, we're looking at remote working and digital working hubs. We have a number of enterprise centres that Fingal County Council are partners in. Our strategic policy committee is looking at the provision of remote working facilities throughout the county. We're actually conducting an audit at the moment of the facilities that are in existence, trying to map them and to see where the gaps are. Because we do recognise that there probably are gaps between private and public provision of those spaces. And it's also then, I suppose, just really looking at that broader picture, that we're always available to have those conversations with business or agencies, or indeed agents of the state, as I said, the IDA, Enterprise Ireland, whoever it might be. That's a key part of our role, and that's how I suppose we generate economic activity in the county, by being out front and having those ongoing conversations and building those relationships. It's a really, really important element of the work that we do. But the development plan facilitates all that. If we didn't have the land zoned in the first instance, and the availability of good infrastructure to support those lands, we wouldn't be having those conversations to help promote the development of the county. Thanks, Jerry.
Emer, just stay there, because just to take this on a little bit further, I just see one question here which is sort of building on what you were talking about there. But one viewer wants to know that, will more self-contained office spaces become available in the future? And they're specifically referring to the likes of Swords and the Dublin Enterprise office, which they say works very successfully.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something we're looking at. Obviously, the development of an enterprise centre or some sort of office facility, but if it was directly by the council, obviously it has significant capital investment. That's not to say it's not the right thing to do. We've been looking at innovation hubs. Part of our work has been kind of developing a makerspace and that whole entrepreneurial spirit, and then looking at the potential for an innovation hub as a spin out from that. Some of the difficulty we experience with enterprise centres is that people get, they really like the locations and they really like that own door facility, and it can be hard to encourage those businesses to take the step into the next space. So that's, I suppose, an ongoing conversation that we do have, but it's certainly something that's very high on our agenda. We recognise that serviced office space isn't necessarily for everybody, that there is, I suppose, a market between the enterprise centre type setup and the fully serviced office or the large scale leasehold of a premises. So again, it's looking at all of those opportunities, and for us, a lot of our work revolves around data collection and seeing what's there, where the gaps are, and does the local authority have a role to fulfil in bridging those gaps. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Emer. One thing we heard about tonight was the Dublin Enterprise Zone, and one viewer here wants to know, how does Fingal promote development in there? And maybe Emer and Matt might come in on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there, Emer. I suppose, look, it's home to a large variety of R&D, high-tech manufacturing industry. It stretches to about 1,500 hectares. It has about roughly 800 businesses and employs about 1,600 employees. So it's a huge asset for the county. And I suppose in the recent number of years, that the synergies, the clusters that exist within that area was recognised, and it was an initiative of Fingal County Council to actually approach all of those businesses and look to promote this and really put it on the map. Because it's a hidden gem within the country, and we really wanted to go in. We did we invested in the public realm and the environmental improvements, and we're continually working on better transport connections up to that area. We're working closely with the NTA, improving cycle and pedestrian facilities so that it becomes more integrated with the huge population that sits on its doorstep there at Blanchardstown and the surrounding area. So we will continue to work with all of those businesses and continue to invest in it. And maybe, Emer, I know you work closely with a lot of the big businesses in there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, look, as I mentioned previously, like, it's all about that relationship management piece, you know. So a happy business in your county is one that will speak well of the local authority and the services that they're getting from the local authority. So a large element of our role is around that relationship management piece and having those ongoing conversations that any of the companies know that they can pick up the phone to myself or Aoife if there's an issue arising, or they just need a piece of advice, or they're thinking about their next investment. I suppose then on the kind of more outward promotion piece, I mean, that's just kind of, I suppose, managing our clients. We do have, I suppose, a dedicated website on the DZ. We're working on new collateral for that to update it, because in the last number of years there has been rapid expansion and growth in that area, just new facilities coming on board there. And Matt alluded to that very strong link and the importance of that link back to the residents that live in surrounding areas. There's opportunities for job creation there. We work with a number of businesses in linking them in with the educational sector to design courses to help with their pipeline. You know, not necessarily everything has to be a PhD. There's, you know, there are lots of roles there. So it's looking at that softer side of things, nearly working with the businesses, working with the local community, and seeing where there can be synergies to be had. And then just to speak on the clustering, hugely important to us, because that's how we attract further development and further investment in the county. You know, if a pharmaceutical company knows that two other pharmaceutical companies have successfully located in the area, and they know the environment works well for them, it helps our conversations with those businesses when we're trying to attract them. As I mentioned again previously, we are a member of numerous networks, Gateway to Europe, all of those, and we push Fingal out as the #1 destination for Ireland in economic recovery and in driving economic development. I think we're very lucky, as I mentioned, to have Dublin Airport in our backyard, and that drives so much of our conversations about the accessibility to business, to sites, to service sites, the accessibility to housing, the affordability of housing, and then really becoming more and more important is the leisure and, you know, the quality of life that goes with living in Fingal. You know, we have the coast, we have fields, we have mountains, you know, we really do have it all in Fingal, and they are really important aspects that when we're promoting our industrial lands or areas for investment, that it's not just about a board of directors' decision to locate in a field in a particular area of the county. It's about that whole of business approach. Where are their staff going to live? Where are they going to get their staff from? Do we have quality educational facilities? Do we have quality housing? And do we have quality life and leisure facilities outside of that? So it's how we wrap that, and we're very, very conscious of that, I suppose, holistic, nearly approach to promoting the county for that inward investment. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Emer. And I've just got time for one last question. And Matt, I'm going to put it to you because it's probably appropriate at this stage, but just one question in here as to what happens next. Where do I go from here to ensure my comments are listened to?
Well, again, look, just to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. Really, a development plan is really the quality of development plan is dependent on the participation of the Fingal community, Fingal residents. I really just want to encourage everybody to make that submission between now and the closing date, which is 11:59 on the 12th of May. You can make submissions by post or online. There's a huge amount of information outside of these webinars available on our dedicated website, Fingal Development Plan, and also the consult.fingal.ie is the place to go to make a submission. So again, I would just thank everyone for tuning in this evening. If they're looking for more information, go to our website. And again, please do make a submission, because it means it's very important that we understand what your aspirations are for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And just before we go, I just want to say that we did get lots of queries about specific projects and work related to the individual towns like Blanchardstown, Castleknock, Holt, Portmarnock, as well as the outlying areas like the Knoll, Ballybochel and other areas like Garristown. I hope you appreciate that we haven't been able to get through everything tonight, but as I did say on several occasions during this webinar, that we will be putting them forward to the development plan team, and they will be taking them under consideration in their preparation of the draft development plan. Thank you to everybody who did submit questions or comments, and thank you all for logging in this evening. We'll have another webinar next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. when we will be discussing connectivity and climate change. So I do hope you can join us then. To book a place, just go to fingal.ie/development plan, and I look forward to talking to you then. Don't forget, as Matthew said, that you can make a submission to the development plan at consult.fingal.ie up until the 12th of May. And if you want to watch tonight's webinar again, a recording will be available later this week on the development plan website, along with a recording of our first webinar, which was about people and place, and our second webinar, which was about heritage and green infrastructure. My thanks to Matthew McAleese, Emer O'Gorman and Aoife Sheridan for joining us this evening and providing us with plenty to think about in relation to employment and economy within Fingal. Hopefully what they had to say will help you in preparing your submission. Until Thursday evening at 7 p.m. when we have our next and final webinar in this series, goodbye and stay safe.